The Scottish Farm Horsemen's Society. This is an overview of the Scottish Horsemen Society, a secretive, protectionist movement founded by the early 1800s and associated with Scotland's principal arable areas. It is also associated with the cult of the horseman's word. My first real encounter with the Horseman Society was in 1984, when I went to meet retired farm horseman Jock Hebburn, pictured in Aberlour, Banffshire. After a good while talking about farm horses, Jock said to me, "Aye, lad, ye've been through the chaff store." It was an acknowledgement from a past member of the Horseman Society that I knew something about farm horses. If we consider Scotland during the 1700s, it was a period of major agricultural improvement, partly driven from 1784 by the Highland and Agricultural Society. However, until the 1790s in places like Aberdeenshire, the inefficient 12-oxen plough, requiring both a ploughman and ox goadsman, predominated. Even where horses were used, as in the 1733 image, they were invariably driven at length, as if they were oxen. Probably the most significant change occurred circa 1760, when Scots ploughwright James Small developed his improved plough with a true mouldboard that turned furrows. Initially, Small's successful and influential plough was primarily wooden, but by 1800 his all-iron plough was in production. With influences far beyond Scotland, Small's plough was a catalyst for one person simultaneously ploughing and driving a team of horses, and subsequently the creation of the farm horseman. By the end of the 1700s, land was increasingly enclosed by landowners to create farms. Where there had been tenanted communities living in such as townships, practicing subsistence agriculture, they declined. Opportunities were consequently created for community dwellers to be employed as farm servants. Thereby, as farms changed from oxen to horses, a new class of specialist farm servant, the horseman, with different livestock management and working skills was created and increasingly sought. The experienced horseman also realized that possessing these specialist skills and sticking together as a brotherhood gave them a level of control over both employers and prospective horsemen. The culmination of this realization was to look towards the established, once medieval trades organizations, the worshipful companies, the oldest being the stonemasons, who oversaw their traditions, skills, training, and standards. These organizations, by their nature, were secretive, but to the benefit of their accepted members and the people they served through the practice of their trade. What the farm servant horseman did first was adopt and adapt the template developed by the masons, creating a protectionist, self-regulating closed shop tantamount to a trade union, hence the Horsemen's Society. However, secondly, they also embraced and adapted the deemed secret ritual practices of masonry as part of initiation, which added to the mysteries, the magic of their trade. The initiation of an approved aspiring horseman to go through the chaff store to enter the horseman's hall and undergo the Horseman Society ritual began by the lad being invited by his senior horseman peers. He would be instructed to be at such as the chaff house or hay loft closed door at midnight, and bring whisky and bread with him. Firstly, he would be blindfolded, and secondly, he would have to answer questions for which he would have been instructed. For example, who told you to come? Answer, the devil. Which way did you come? Answer, by the hooks and crooks of the road. By which light did you come? Answer, by the stars and light of the moon. Where were you made a horseman? Answer, in a horseman's hall, where the sun never shone, the wind never blew, the cock never crowed, and the feet of a maiden never trod. Questions answered, he would be led into the horseman's hall. Still blindfolded, now plied with whisky, and at least nervous, if not scared, the initiate would be made to kneel before an altar, often made by a bushel measure upended over a sack of oats. From this point he would be made to both repeat and swear the horseman's oath that would allow him to receive the word, which in turn would give him the powers and skills of horsemanship. The following is extracted from the oath. I, of my own free will and accord, solemnly vow and swear before God and all these witnesses that I will heal, conceal, and never reveal any part of the true horsemanship which I am about to receive at this time. And, if I fail to keep these promises, may my flesh be torn to pieces with a wild horse, and my heart cut through with a horseman's knife, and my bones buried on the sands of the seashore, where the tide ebbs and flows every 24 hours, so that there may be no remembrance of me amongst lawful brethren. So help me God to keep these promises. Amen. Still blindfolded, the maybe slightly inebriate initiate would have to confirm his allegiance to the Brotherhood of the Horseman by shaking hands with the old shield, the devil. The devil in reality was, as shown, a pole covered with hide and a sewn-on hoof, although Jock Hepburn told me that they used to get a calf's leg with a real cloven hoof from the slaughterhouse. After this, the new horseman would share the rest of his whisky and bread with his fellow brethren. And what is the word? Yes, I do know, but never reveal. As implied, being a member of the Horseman Society and having received the word was said to give the horseman power over horses, and some said women. To uninitiated outsiders, it was often perceived as magic. As these rare images show, in reality it was often displayed through horse tricks, achieved by trust between man and horse. Away from the ritual and perceptions of the society, there were benefits from being a member of the Brotherhood. Knowing that you were approved by your peers, knowing that you would have peer support, respecting camaraderie that engendered pride in being a horseman, knowing you had unity and strength in numbers for negotiations. For some top horsemen, enhanced community respect and status. For aspiring horsemen, access to mentoring and training, thereby gaining a peer-led informal qualification and a stepping stone to improved employment positions. Access to problem solving for horse training and working, plus solutions for such as veterinary issues. Overall, membership was intended to encourage best practice and maintain standards, including through tradition and competition for horse and harness care. After over 100 years' existence, the second decade of the 20th century heralded the death knell for both the farm horse and the Horseman Society. Firstly, there was the 1914-1918 First World War. It was a watershed. Previously, the culture associated with both the horsemen and horses, the latter including breed societies, was at a peak. However, as both men and horses either went to war or were affected by it, change was inevitable. The men who went to war came back with different attitudes to work and tradition. The latter became significantly less important. Despite emergency food cultivation needs, Scottish agricultural horse numbers dropped during the war, primarily owing to military acquisition. Thereafter, horse numbers dramatically decreased. Mechanization was a further major reason for the demise of both horses and the Horseman Society. Tractors such as the International Mogul were introduced by 1915. In December 1917, the Fordson, as shown, was brought into production, and by 1918 6,000 had been supplied to Britain. During the war on the farms, the older resident horsemen were mainly averse to tractors. This gave women a role in driving them, through such as the Women's Land Army, or as voluntary drivers from the motor transport section of the Army Service Corps. Coming back from the war, especially the younger men, were more aware of the possibilities of mechanization. Their inclination was to crank a tractor engine rather than getting up early to feed, groom, and harness a team of horses. There was no need for the Horseman Society. A further reason for the Horseman Society decline was an alternative, namely the Scottish Farm Servants' Union. Founded in 1887, the union had similar aims to the Society, but as a formal Scottish national organisation, it was inclusive for all farm workers. By 1913, the union had over 6,000 members, and with unity strength to negotiate for pay, working conditions, and holidays, the Horseman Society became increasingly irrelevant. By the 1920s and onwards, the changes were dramatic. There was a post-war agricultural depression. Wages fell, and, if not leaving the land, farm workers were more concerned with their work conditions than tradition. In photos, horsemen's clothing became more relaxed, the stance less depicting pride, and the horse's harness less cared for. For committed horse breeders, many moved away from smaller working horses that suited the work in hand, to breeding larger animals to breed society standards, whose conformation was more suited for show and making money. In simplistic terms, such was the accelerating demise of both the Horseman Society and working farm horses. And the final nail in the coffin? The 1946 freed from bondage introduction of the successful Ferguson TE20 tractor that was compared to the detriment of remaining Scottish farm horses in economic, practical and farm worker terms. There really was little argument for final change. Thank you.